I come from a family of 9, including my grandpa, whom we call Ji-sang, and 6 of us children. Life was quite peaceful and very quiet because this was in Haleiwa. My dad became a tailor. We were not rich, but we were not poor. We had a good life.
I still remember that morning, 7:50. I was at dormitory, mid-pack. All of a sudden, music stopped. This is a war. Entire Hawaiian island under enemy attack.
Local authorities, military authorities, arrested several hundred of the community leaders. There was this general assumption that the Japanese populations, even the local, the American-born Nisei, would somehow flock to the side of the Japanese. And I think it was that fear that led to these arrests.
Most of the kocho sensei, the principals of Japanese schools, and senior teachers were rounded up, men who had status, business leaders or physicians.
Internment facilities were opened up on the various islands. Sand Island on Oahu, Kilauea military facility on the Big Island, on Maui, the Haiku camp, and on Kauai, Kalaheo stockade. The total number of internees from Hawaii we're not sure exactly the exact number.
But I remember one day, I guess it did happen in April, that there were some men who came to question him. They went into my room and opened all the drawers. And I said, "What are you looking for?" They didn't answer. They just searched all over the house. And then they took my dad away. That's what I remember about that day.
First part, when I came back from Japan, I was teaching Japanese school. At the time, lots of Nisei with teaching Japanese school. My friend, they got arrested. And so I thought, oh, maybe tomorrow, maybe I gotta go.
Are you Ureta? Harry Ureta? Yes.
When Sand Island closed in March of 1943, those who were left, which were almost entirely Nisei, were transferred to the Honouliuli camp. Most of them, at least initially, were Kibe, that is, Nisei who were born in Hawaii and thus U.S. citizens, but who had been educated in part in Japan. And for various reasons, that group was deemed the most suspect by U.S. authorities.
It encompassed about 160 acres, and it was built originally to hold 3,000.
And the largest group at Honouliuli actually were POWs.
Honouliuli was totally barren then. It was huge. And then there were some tents, and that's where my parents were, in tents.
Two of the most interesting cases at Honouliuli involved members of the legislature. In 1940, Sanji Abe had been elected to the Territorial Senate, the first Japanese-American Republican. He was in Nisei. And Thomas T. Sakakihara was elected to the Territorial House. It was a big deal for the community in 1940 because there were still relatively few Japanese Americans who held political office at that time. And then 2 years later, 1942, they were arrested and thrown into an internment camp, both of them at Honouliuli.
How come I gotta stay inside here? Although I'm American citizen, we are there under suspicion. They just suspect us.
Then we have a dining room, everyone get together, wife and children. We internees, we talk.
Don't forget, study hard for school, because school is important, yeah? And don't forget, take care of your brothers and sisters, yeah?
And I remember somebody explaining that he is not a prisoner, he is an intern. And I thought, well, what is the difference? Because, Pop isn't at home. I just wanted to see him.
When are you coming back?
I'll be back as soon as I can. All right?
I recall where my dad would give my mom gifts like turtles that he had fashioned from cowrie shell.
So I still remember getting those rings made out of toothbrush handles. I used to marvel at how did they do that?
I made this for you.
Thank you.
Keep it with you. And I'll be...
And in fact, he used to say that that was a good way to keep yourself occupied because some of them were going stir crazy, just sitting and doing nothing.
First I studied English. Then I play mahjong, play card. And then I go farm, volunteer. You have to do something, otherwise the time no fly.
My mother decided that we have to be away from Dad so long. It's not good, so we should go to the mainland and be all together. So we got ready to go, and my mother bought a lot of stuff for us for the cold country. And all of a sudden in January, everything stopped. And then he was released on January 19th. So he came back.
They put us in a stockade. They watch how we're gonna do, react. When war ended, then I made my mind. I gotta do something for America.
If you were one of these 1,000 or so who were thrown in camp, you must have been guilty of something. So I think there was the stigma that a lot of these families carried around that they didn't want to talk about.
When his friends came, they never came during the day. They just came during the night to see him.
When I asked him why he didn't talk about it and why his kids didn't know about it, he said that for the longest time he was really angry. He was angry at the government for taking him. And then when he came back, he was angry at people who came to see him because they had to sneak and see him.
After the war, Honouliuli in particular, but the whole internment story was largely forgotten. The archaeological element was another key thing that occurred in the last few years. It was really precipitated by Jeff Burton and Mary Farrell, who are archaeologists, formerly with the National Park Service.
I'm going to ask Sarah to look at it because you have probably much better eyes than I do. A lot of times on the bottle, if it says Owens, can you see the oval? Can you tell what that is?
They were an inspiration to our students because our students worked alongside them and asked, "Why are you here?" And when they heard that their grandfather had been interned, it just made the whole experience more meaningful for them.
In August in 2007, when we purchased the area from Campbell Estate, we realized that this area was a very special place. We want this area to benefit all of the community.
I knew very little about my grandfather's internment. It wasn't a subject that was brought up, and it wasn't something that was talked about often. To think that my grandfather went through it and that he didn't talk about it, I find that that's just amazing. That he could have gone through something like that and not ever complain about it. I find that remarkable.
Having the sites available for people to really look at, think about, visit, provides a really concrete way in which people can say, okay, racial profiling, whether it's after 9/11 and it's Middle Eastern people or Sikhs or people with turbans or whatever, who we think might constitute an imminent danger to the United States, and the use of torture and all of those kinds of things. It seems to me those are things that we need to really, really carefully think about.
For the United States, their intent was to protect their citizens. I think what they forgot was that these were their citizens. But I think people's experiences have to be talked about and delivered so that maybe we can minimize that discrimination.
There are some who say, well, why talk about it? I think we should, if only to remind ourselves that this can happen in our democracy if we're not vigilant, because it did.